Welcome back, everybody. Joining us to discuss the story that we broke at the very top of the hour is Texas Land Commissioner and candidate for the Republican runoff for Texas Attorney General George P. Bush. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
10,000 ballots just lost, not counted. What's your reaction?
Well, Texans are a very proud people. We love our tamales. We love our Tex-Mex, but when it comes to elections, we just try not to get embarrassed. And regretfully, we got embarrassed on this one. But it was largely liberal progressive Democrats that run our election systems in counties, big blue counties like Harris County, that dropped the ball on this one. And this is something that is Republicans, we've been pointing out in our state capital for a long time, that we need to have more modern systems that are accurate, that precisely tabulate votes as they are brought in. In this case, regretfully, not only 10,000 ballots were not counted, but 1,500 ballots were apparently misapplied and misutilized. So Harris County is notoriously late in counting up ballots, but this shows the level of incompetency led by Judge Hidalgo and the need not only for the resignation of the chief election officer there, but a total restructuring in terms of how we count ballots in the state of Texas.
Yeah, such an important thing. I have this fun story to tell, George. I was with your grandfather back maybe about 10, 12 years ago. I spent a day with him, and we talked about elections for about 10 minutes, and he said, he pointed to the ground. He said, I was in Houston with him, and he said, you know why I worry about elections in Texas? In this city right here, he said, and sure as heck, it came true a decade later. There's been lots of problems in Harris County. I want to take you to another issue that came up. The Secretary of State finished an audit in December, and he found about 12,000 what appear to be foreigners, non-citizens that made it onto the rolls, and now they're in the process of finding out, did they vote? Should they be prosecuted? What does that say about the monitoring systems that all the states have for the voter rolls?
Well, I consider it a good news story in that our proactive Secretary of State, who is a Republican appointed by our Republican governor, Governor Abbott, finding 12,000 illegal voters on our rolls. But it does show that manipulation, that fraud, that attempts at abuse occur every single day when it comes to the most important constitutional duty that we all have, and that's our right to vote. And so I commend the Secretary of State's website, but as a candidate for Attorney General, what I'm proposing is additional funding and investigative capabilities, not only in the Secretary of State's office, which you could consider a proactive looking forward agency when it comes to running our election systems, but in the agency that I hope to run, and that's the Attorney General's office, where currently Ken Paxton only maintains about 4 prosecutors and about 6 criminal investigators in a state of 29 million people. That's just not going to cut it. I was in a race with Congressman Gohmert. He proposed the idea of 1 prosecutor in all of our 254 counties. A lot of our election system is run predominantly through our county systems. So I think that's a great idea. Why aren't we thinking big, boldly, like Texans typically do?
Yeah, it's a big idea.
So it's a big state and a lot to accomplish should you win that seat as Attorney General. I want to pop out of the election integrity conversation for just a moment and zoom in on some things that have happened in Texas that I think are a really good sign for Republicans. I think it was McAllen, Texas, the mayoral election, but other seats across Texas that have been blue for decades, that because of legal Hispanic immigrants in Texas are starting to turn red. Is this trend continuing in your state?
Amanda, this was one of the good news stories of the night, and that showed that, you know, whether it was Zapata County, Hidalgo County, Cameron, these are all counties that President Trump carried just 2 years ago. And it was all because of the border security issue. You have a lot of legal immigrants that are tired of people getting cut in line and taking jobs and shouldering the educational benefit and the healthcare benefits of illegals. And so we are finding not only turnout higher, but in some counties it doubled versus 4 years ago in the last non-presidential election cycle. So we're going to carry on President Trump's message of securing the border. Voting integrity is a big issue, but also making sure that we're protecting the Second Amendment so that we can preserve the First Amendment. And these issues are really resonating with now 5 popularly elected Republican mayors in the Rio Grande Valley in counties that for generations voted Democrats. So we're going to continue the momentum focusing on America First, I call them Texas First policies that are going to really resonate among legal Hispanic communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Commissioner, we got about a minute left. You're in a runoff now. It's a big task to take on an incumbent, knock him off in the primary. What do you need to do to win on election day?
Well, close to 60% of Republicans saw their incumbent, their current office holder, and chose to go in a different direction. So I've reached out to my fellow competitors, Congressman Gohmert and to Justice Guzman, to commend them for running great races. But now it's time for conservatives to come together and restore honor and integrity to an office that's occupied by, unfortunately, a gentleman that's facing 3 felony counts for securities fraud and an FBI investigation looking into bribery, corruption. John, I'm in this race to beat Democrats and AOC-styled leftists. We've got a far left candidate that's at the front of the Democratic wing of the nomination process. We're going to beat her as the nominee.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, you guys certainly have your share of squad type Democrat progressives there in Texas. So we appreciate you taking them on. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back on soon.
Roger that. Thank you all for having me.